All right, thanks, Yvette. I'm going to first of all have all of the leaders who are here in the meeting right now. Some people are getting ready for conference, so they may not be in here. But all the board members of Affirmation, would you please stand? Okay. Just quickly say your name. Start with Ron here.
Ron Scout.
Kevin Carlson.
Joy Gustav Randall.
Yvette Sobel.
Dan Moore.
Mika Alden. Jen Blair.
Ron Raines.
Anybody else? I think Pilar's on the leadership team. That's okay. Not the board specifically. But and then we have many others who are out doing some things right now. And Greg Prince is not with us this weekend. His autistic son is having some issues, so we hope the best for him and his family. Did you have something, Ron, you want to share? Oh. All right, so members of our leadership, our general leadership team, anybody who's in our leadership team, who you all know who you all are in our Facebook group. It does a variety of different projects all around the globe. Will you please stand? Mark Snyder. Anybody else missing? They're out doing work. They're actually getting ready for a conference. So I want to say your names, you guys. Levántense. Tú también, Agustín. Go ahead. Give your name.
Agustín.
From Monterrey, Mexico.
Ezequiel from Argentina.
Kevin Class. Chile.
Peter Powell. Christian Franson. Mark Schneider. Trevor Cadet. Christian Harris.
And in the back, we have John Piney, Nathaniel Clem, and Todd Richardson who are working. Okay, very good. And I'd like to ask Paul Mortensen to stand real quick. He hates doing this. Paul Mortensen is one of the founders of Affirmation. From 1979, he was involved prior, but when it officially became. So let's give him a round of applause. All right, so we shared this earlier in our leadership meeting. This is a quote from Matt Price. Matt Price was one of the founders of Affirmation as well. That's actually not his real name. That was a pseudonym. This is a quote that he gave in which he says, "Don't forget the work of the Spirit. I don't want to seem overly dependent on some mysterious influence as to what makes Affirmation work. But there is a real need for prayer and reflection on what we are doing, reaching out to our Father in heaven and to each other. We firmly believe that Affirmation had a place in the plan of our Father in heaven and his kingdom, and that the Holy Spirit is still with us as individuals and as a group of his children, guiding us in what we are seeking to accomplish. His Spirit is most reflected when we are working toward our goals, ever mindful of the needs of our sisters and brothers, ourselves, and the working of our Savior in our lives and in our hearts." And with that is a beautiful way to move into what is Affirmation all about. Well, when people ask me, what's Affirmation all about? The first thing I say is helping people find a healthy and productive way forward in their life. That is the principal thing that we're trying to help them do. Independent of the decisions that they decide to make around their sexuality and their faith, is helping them find a healthy and productive way forward in their life. That is, as much as possible, that works for them, consistent with their faith and their heritage. We have everybody here. In this room, on our leadership team, we have celibate temple recommend holding individuals. We have people in mixed orientation marriages. We have people who are also married to the same sex or in same-sex relationships or partnerships or not in partnerships. We have everything. We have people who are active in the church, who are inactive in the church, who have joined another church. Everything is here today. And it's a beautiful, beautiful spectrum. I love that the Deseret News quoted me as saying, I don't know if you read the article this last week, that Affirmation is a place where we respect the full spectrum of the way different people feel the light. And this conference is about celebrating that light and however you may feel it. We provide a loving and inclusive community independent of how you decide on calling yourself. If you want to call yourself SSA, fine. If you want to call yourself gay, fine. If you want to call yourself queer, fine. Whatever you want to use in your terminology. We encourage spirituality, though. It's one of the founding principles of Affirmation. It's in the Charter and Bylaws from 1979. It's the very first one, is to encourage spirituality and prayer. We encourage people to make contributions within the LDS Church and outside of the LDS Church, or both. And then we organize local gatherings, international conferences, provide resources, and work for dialogue within the church. Our vision is that Affirmation will serve tens of thousands of individuals worldwide. As I said earlier in our leadership meeting, if 5% of our LDS population is impacted by being LGBT, that's 750,000 Mormons. And if their family members and friends are interested in getting support as well, then we're looking at around 2 million or more that need help. That's why we found significant interest in Latin America and elsewhere in the world at getting support. We want many non-LGBT Mormons to know about Affirmation and turn to Affirmation as a support. And we want LGBT Mormons who are interested in attending the church to feel comfortable attending their wards, and we're trying to find ways to provide support in that. And then we hope that our stories and voices will transform people's experiences of who we are. These are our values. We value strongly the fact that we're not trying to push people in one way or another, but we honor each individual's path with patience, diversity, authenticity, by the Spirit, that we really recognize that we can own our faith and follow our own inspired agenda, and we can welcome a conversation with the church in the way that works for us as individuals. You can find these on our website as well. Now, these 4 key things, if you want to easily remember what are Affirmation's 4 objectives, you can go to our founding documents. The 4 points talk about encouraging spirituality and prayer and Christ-like behavior. And 2 is creating a forum to educate leaders and members of the church about homosexuality and gender identity, the dialogue piece. 3 is creating a community providing social support, intellectual stimulation, etc., and a place where we can feel authentic, we can feel safe, and we can share our gifts. Oftentimes I'll find somebody we hear from people who have been excommunicated or they've been disciplined, they've lost their calling. They say, how do I give now? And we've found a place for them to give an Affirmation. Or you can give elsewhere in the world as well, but we are a place where you can share your gifts freely and we can use them. And we also provide resources to help people reconcile their sexual orientation and gender identity and gender expression with their LDS faith. Did I get off of those 4 founding principles at all? Am I on? Okay, so those have been around since 1979. This is our rolling calendar. We'd love for you to be involved with as many things as you'd like. A big thing that we do is around General Conference. We know sometimes, well, we all know that language can be very hurtful. And it can also be very healing. So at General Conference time, we have a post-General Conference online virtual chat where people discuss what General Conference was like for them. We have some online articles that help people. The World Congress of Families is coming up here in Salt Lake City in October, something that we're all not looking forward to. There will be a couple of events related to this, an online one that will feature all kinds of families, and then an event, the closing day of that conference will be an alternate event that will feature family acceptance and address issues of homelessness and suicide. We hope that that'll show up in the paper the same morning at the end of the event of the Congress of Families. Our next big event will actually be in January. We usually have a regional conference in the winter somewhere. Last year it was in Florida. This year it's going to be in Southern California, in Los Angeles. And we'll be going to Brazil for the first time in March to do conferences in Fortaleza and Sao Paulo. If any of you speak Portuguese and you want to help out, we can use your help. There's a lot of Mormons in Brazil, and it's growing very fast. And then we have our annual spiritual retreat. This year it's going to be held in Far West Independence, Liberty, Missouri area. We're going to be staying at a property owned by the Community of Christ, which has a nice lake with canoes, etc. And the name of this retreat will be called No Strangers in Zion. Last year we were in Palmyra. The year before we were in Nauvoo. And then, of course, we have annual conferences in Mexico. There will be another one again in Peru, and probably in Chile, and maybe in Argentina. We'll see. And do we have Mark with us here from England? No, I don't think so. He's outside working. Okay. Mark, stand up. Stand up. Aaron Mark McManus, sorry. Aaron. So Aaron leads our Europe group, and you met over here Ezekiel, who runs the Argentine, Carmen and Joaquin, he's not in here right now, run Chile, and Adrian, are you here? Runs Mexico. Okay. And then we have our annual conference again next September. So these things you can find on our website as well. Anything I missed I should point out? Okay. All right, so now to the business. This is called the general business meeting. This is a big year because there's an election. The last 2 years there has not been a contested, I ran uncontested the last 2 years. So according to our bylaws, the first day of conference was yesterday. We began our conference with the potluck. People have to submit their candidacy statements, and as of that date, it was Fred, Kathy, and John. And they're going to share their statements here in the meeting. They have 3 minutes each. And then after that, Olin will facilitate a dialogue to take questions from you. We'll have somebody walking around with the mic. And then we'll be going through and looking to make sure everybody is current. If you donated to Affirmation, let me skip to the next slide. This might make it easier. So this is the eligibility to vote. If you donated $25 or more since November 1st, 2014, between then and Halloween of this year, then you are eligible to vote, except for in Latin America, where if you donate $5, same time frame, in the countries where we're officially established in Argentina, Chile, Mexico, and Peru. You have to be 12 years of age and older. Anybody who came here on a conference scholarship of $59 is automatically receives membership as well. Any questions on eligibility to vote? Okay. All right, so you'll get an email and a hard copy to vote, and you'll have a special pin that you'll enter in online, and then you'll be able to vote online for that individual. The method that's going to be used is, Olin's going to explain here in a minute, because we have 3 candidates. We want to make sure that it's as fair as possible. The vote will be open for 2 weeks. Then the vote's counted. By December, you'll find out who the new president is. They'll select their vice presidents, and that'll be ratified by the board. And then the new EC and the board members will be announced, because board members will change, because John and Fred are currently board members, so that would leave 2 seats open and things will change there. And then we will have our new strategic planning process. We're doing a strategic plan every 3 years. We've been working off that for the last 3 years, and we'll be creating another one. And actually a survey, there will be questions included in your vote online, surveying you about affirmation, what we can do to better fulfill those 3 objectives of spirituality, dialogue, community, and resources. Any questions on the timeline of the election? Okay, I'll have Olin explain the vote method, and then introduce the candidates and begin that.
All right. It's working. Okay. All right. Well, because we do have 3 candidates this year, is it not working? Yeah, the red light was on, but it wasn't seem to be working. All right. Because we do have 3 candidates this year, it was decided by the board, and the people prior to that, had suggested to use a runoff voting type system. And there is, systems out there. So we're going to propose using an instant runoff voting system. That way, if no one person receives the majority of the votes in the first round, it'll be taken care of. And how that works is that, of course, you'll vote for whoever you want, but what we're going to do on the ballot is you're going to vote for your first, second, and third choice. And the first choice votes will be counted. If someone wins a majority of the votes in the first round, election's over, she or him, whoever wins. But if no candidate is above 50%, then the candidate who received the fewest votes will be eliminated from the race, and then the votes will be transferred to the other candidates. So the people that voted for them first, their second choice candidates, will then go become first choice votes for the other 2 candidates. At that point, because there's only 2 people left, someone should have a clear majority. And that may not be the person who had the highest number of votes first, depending on who the second choice votes were. So that's how it would work. The board has approved this, but they have asked that I put this to a vote of the general conference. Now, this is the general conference. The business meeting are the members of Affirmation who vote, who by our charter and bylaws have the ultimate authority in Affirmation. And so we would like to have you vote right now if you like this system or not. And that's the system that's going to be proposed. So I'm going to call for a vote yay or nay if you think this is a good idea. Because I really don't see what the alternative is, but you know, we would like to have your support. So all who are in favor of using the instant runoff voting system, I always want to reverse those two for some reason, system, please signify. And are there any who are opposed? I see no one opposed, so thank you for your support. Now we have 3 candidates. I would like to introduce each of them to you, and they have a moment to speak. You have actually, earlier in the meeting I was handing out printed copies of the statements they have at this point. These statements will be published shortly after the conference on our website and be sent out in our newsletter. They may be expanded at that time. They will also the candidates will have private web pages and some things like that, which are noted in their statements. So I'm going to ask if there's someone here to be so kind as to hand out the hard copies just for the people who've arrived later while I'm doing this. Christian, you imagine it? Some people already have, but just see who doesn't. If you would like one, you need one, just raise your hands to help Christian here decide who needs one of these. And then you can read it at your leisure and contemplate who strikes you as the best candidate if you can't decide from what they tell you in person. We didn't discuss candidates. Who would go first? Is alphabetical order okay, or would you like some other system? Okay. All right, so since we'll go in alphabetical order, the first candidate alphabetically would be Fred Bowers. So I'm going to cut you off for 3 minutes. So I would recommend not read your statements, but speak from the heart, and because they're going to have your statements in writing. So Fred,
Sure, thank you.
why don't you use this mic?
Thank you, Alden. My name is Fred Bowers, and I'm a 21st century gay Mormon candidate for Affirmation president. The people of Affirmation are like a collection of pattern pieces, all unique, beautiful, and full of LGBTQ SSA spirit and life. Formed from different affinity and support groups, we are a tapestry of 21st century Mormons that can work to bring our Affirmation family to the place where it gets better for everyone. We have made our personal and collective hero and heroine journeys to this place many of us call home. Many more making this journey, and we need to bring them in from the plains to help them with their journeys. To make it better, let's talk about the following: our collective needs for better mental health, resources for LGBTQ Mormons throughout the span of their lifetimes, ways to honor our LGBTQ Mormon past, how to increase diversity in the Affirmation family, and ways we can create a place where all is well for us in our present and future. Let us join our pattern pieces together in love and understanding. Let's make a better Affirmation tapestry for each other together. I have a vision how we can bring our glorious pattern pieces together. We can focus on integrated diversity while LGBTQ Mormons are an integral part of God blessing God's people in all areas of the worldwide church. In my view, there are 6 focus areas that Affirmation can focus on, both internally and externally, to work toward integrated diversity. They are the gospel or guiding principles, nation, kindred, tongue, people, and operational support. Go to fredbowers2014.wordpress.com to learn more about this vision and my record of public service. Elect me as your next Affirmation president, and we can work together to make Affirmation the beautiful tapestry of LGBTQ SSA Mormon lives that is meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Kathy Carlston. Easy, BC.
Hi, so my name is Kathy Carlston, and I feel like I'm starting a rap song. My name is Kathy Carlston. I'm here to sing. But we'll see. But basically, I wanted to just talk a little bit about my coming to Affirmation, and I first attended a conference about 3 years ago, and it came at the tail end of a really dark time in my life, and just through the resources that Affirmation has provided, through the community, through the friendships, through the support that I've been able to find here, my life has become better than I ever imagined that it would be. I'm a little bit about me. I grew up in Denver, and I have really cute Mormon parents. Well, my dad passed away a little bit ago, but my mom is kind of the most adorable person on the planet, and I'm a Columbine survivor. I used to work in movies, and I think that the skill sets that I bring to Affirmation include my media skill sets. They also include a very big, compassionate heart, and I really love the idea of being able to continue to have the support and continue to build the resources that exist already, and continue to be more inclusive. I really want to reach out to different diverse communities, including people of color, including the trans and gender queer spectrums, and I'd love to make Affirmation a very aware, very kind, very safe, very good environment. And I believe it already is, and we can, I love the idea of creating resources, educating people about the resources, elevating people through the resources, and then celebrating our elevation together. So, that's me.
All right, it's leadership. So, it's actually kind of nerve-wracking to be in a presidential candidacy running against Fred and Kathy because, over the years we have worked together as a team, and that's really how we've thought of ourselves as co-workers. And Fred is an incredible idea guy, and you sit down with him and he's really great at sort of hashing stuff out. And Kathy has this, incredible sense of humor and has incredible communication skills. And so, I was talking to Fred earlier, and we realized, regardless of who wins this, we still are going to be working together as a team. We're the ones who really want to make this work. I have come to Affirmation really partly because I feel we're at a historic crossroads as LGBT Mormons. I think that right now, really, if you look at since 2006, we have seen a complete transformation of the discussion within the Mormon community about homosexuality and about gender identity. The game now is completely different from what it was when most of us in this room were really starting to think about these issues and come to terms with these issues. It's completely different. I have a sense that there is some greater process at work here. When Prop 8 happened in 2008, a lot of us were devastated. I knew when Prop 8 happened that this was going to move our cause forward. It was going to make it easier for us to begin to talk with the people in our lives who really matter to us, our family, members of our communities, members of the church. And in fact, I think that's what we've seen. We've seen a dramatic increase in dialogue. And I am a believing Mormon. I have a testimony of the church. I am profoundly committed to the church. I love the church. And I want to be able to live in a world where my Mormonness, where my faith as an LDS and my identity as an LGBT person are perfectly harmonious. And I know that that world exists because I have felt that in my relationship with God, because of the communications that I've received from God through prayer. I know that that world exists. I know that my brothers and sisters in the LDS church may still be wrestling and may still be struggling to see if that is a possibility and if that can exist. But I feel like Affirmation is the organization that can move a discussion along within our largest community of LDS, our families, our friends, those who are with us in the pews. That Affirmation is strategically poised to move that conversation along. And we do it through faith, through commitment, through connection, through dialogue. We do it by taking care of one another. So many of us have been so deeply injured that the idea of engaging with the church scares you to death. And that's the beauty of Affirmation. We're all in different places. We all have different skills. We all have different passions. And some of us are able to carry on that dialogue, and others aren't. But all of our stories are needed. Leaders of the church, members of the church need to hear the stories of those who have left, those who can't carry on, and they need to hear the stories of those of us who are still active, are engaged, and we all need to carry each other in this journey. And that's what I would hope to lead us in doing as president.
The transition between Kathy and John. So, for those of you that don't know, that was John Gustav Rathal. He didn't say his name, and I didn't get to introduce him, so that was John. If you didn't get it, we're going to have an ability for people to ask questions of the candidates. We do have these cordless mics. I'm going to see if this one is tuned in right now. Okay, this one, yeah, because they're both working. They were on the wrong frequencies. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is, if the candidates come up here, I'm going to leave one of the mics here at the table. They do have a on-off mute, or which is a mute button, so you turn off between it up. But you probably just leave it on and pass it amongst yourselves, and I will take the other mic out into the audience if anyone wants to ask a question. So here's your mic. All right, does anyone have a question for any of the candidates? I'll bring the mic to you. All right, I see. Yeah, you next. All right, first, Richard.
For Kathy, you mentioned 4 categories at the end of your presentation, and I was wondering if you would elaborate more on how you see Affirmation fulfilling each of those areas.
Sure. So the 4 categories that I listed, I believe that you're referring to are to create, to educate, to elevate, and then to celebrate. So basically, what I see what I see Affirmation doing is creating resources. Like we say, even something as basic as a certain demographic, like a page for where we can collect stories from like Mormon women, for LGBT women. And so we create it, we educate, we tell people that we've created this. We educate about what a Mormon LGBT woman goes through, like what that's all about. We elevate the conversation. We're able to deepen our understanding. We're able to learn. We're able to grow, and we're able to include, more and more, like say that demographic into the conversation, and then we're able to celebrate together. We're able to say, yeah, okay, cool, we're doing a good job. So let's go create more. Let's go do it again, type of thing. So that's kind of what I see Affirmation doing.
My question is for John. I too am an active Latter-day Saint, but I realize that probably a majority of our membership are not actively involved with the LDS Church. And so you've been on both sides of that fence. How would you respond and meet the needs of our membership that are not LDS, not interested in returning to church?
You're right. Okay, you're right. I've been on both sides of that. And for 19 years, I had left the church and I wanted nothing to do with the church. And in fact, during that time, I actually had no interest in Affirmation, really, because to my mind, Affirmation was about being gay and Mormon. And at that point, I didn't even identify as, and I preferred not even to identify as ex-Mormon. I said, I'm a Lutheran now. That's what I've become. Or I'm a member of the UCC. I preferred to identify as what I was. But I understand I understand the sense of clan. I understand the sense that people who've left the church, they still identify with us as a people. And I understand how utterly vital it is for Affirmation to function as an LGBT Mormon clan, where we take care of one another, where we love one another, where we are a community, and where those lines of in the church, out of the church make absolutely no difference. Right? That's going to make no difference at all to how we function here at conference, for example. When I see a person, I don't ask them, are you a member of the church or not? I just give them a hug, right? And we both may cry during the same story that's being told in some session that we're attending, regardless of where we are. So in terms of how do we function as an organization, we continue to function as a community that support each other regardless of where we are within those spectra of faith, regardless of our race, ethnicity, our sexuality, our gender identity, right? We create that unity, that love. It's an incredible thing that we all experience here at Affirmation. What I have observed from the last 3 years, and I talked to Affirmation folks about this 4 or 5 years ago when people were saying, what is the future of Affirmation? And I said, unless we connect with faith, with the LDS faith in the most profound sense of what that means, which means engaging with the church, right? Then we're not going to have a future. We have to engage in that level. We have to support regardless of where people are. And what we've seen since then is that as we have engaged, what has happened? We've brought in allies. We've brought in youth. We were not reaching youth effectively. And by saying Affirmation is also about faith, about connecting with our faith, about empowering people to be Mormon, that has made it safer for youth to participate. It's made it safer for allies to participate. It's created a dynamism that nobody could have foreseen 5 years ago. So I think it's utterly essential that we maintain that connection, that we maintain that faith commitment. And I think that will drive everything else. Does it mean that regardless of where you are, right, people who left the church 25 years ago or what, and have no desire to have anything to do with that, but just want to hang out with other gay Mormons, right? We will still be doing that as a community. We must do that, right? There's a healing work that needs to happen. I remember talking to James Kent after our Seattle conference, and he came to me with tears in his eyes and said, we as an organization need spiritual healing. And that's my sense, that there is a lot of injury, there's a lot of woundedness. So we need that healing, so we must absolutely continue to do that. But that's not going to, So I'm not talking about changing anything of that. Really, I want to kind of carry on and continue what we've been doing so far.
All right. Todd?
I have 2 questions, but luckily they're both yes or no's. My first is, and this is for all 3 of you, yes or no is awesome. I want you, all 3 of you have been involved with Affirmation for a number of years. I want you to think about a week in which you spent so much time on Affirmation stuff, and you felt burned out, and you just felt like you gave it your all. I want you to multiply that by 50, because I know all of the time that I've seen leaders in the past put in, and I recognize that that's the time that's required. So the yes or no question is, are you willing to put in those 50 weeks? Yes or no?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Hello. Okay. Answer is yes.
I have had numerous discussions with my husband about this. Can you support me in this kind of a commitment? And he has absolutely said yes, and so I say yes.
My wife's also given me permission, so I say yes.
Thank you. My next question for you 3 is, in Affirmation's past, there have been times where those people who have run against one another for president, those who have lost have left Affirmation. And my big concern is that that would potentially happen this year, as it's our first year in a few that we've had several people running for president. So would you three, yes or no, be willing to commit to stay a member and on the leadership team of Affirmation should you lose?
Yes, and I do intend to clear out my schedule in the same way that I had initially planned, regardless of whether I win or lose. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Nothing like yes or no answers. All right. Do we have any other questions for the candidates? Vaughn?
So this is for all three of you. What are your plans in order to build bridges with other groups out there? Oftentimes, other groups feel vilified by, we can't play together nicely. What are your plans to build bridges with the other LGBT groups that exist within the church?
I'll take it since.
Mike. One of the things that I think about all the time when we start talking about we have a discussion where we're at different ends of the spectrum is what's very key is try to tease out and get in all this conversation, there's got to be at least one thing in common that both sides see. For me, that's very important. I work for it. I work for consensus. I work to see with people if we can get to that point. I'm a real good fan of Stephen Covey's talking stick method of having people repeat what they just heard. A lot of times we talk past each other, and so that's why you really can't get to that point where we have something we agree on. So we need to do a lot of work to make some of those conversations like that happen. Thank you.
Maybe you're specifically referring to North Star or other groups. I have already been working to build some of those kinds of bridges for years, and develop some of those kinds of relationships. And I think it is really important for us to do that because, historically, there's been a big gap between where Affirmation was and where North Star was, or prior to that, Evergreen. And so when people sort of fell off that faithful Mormon track, they sort of fell into the abyss, and there was no safety net. And I think that as Affirmation has really begun to affirm the importance of faith for us, and we don't prescribe that, right? I mean, each person gets to decide what faith means for them, but to say that this is really important to us, that has created a safety net, and now we're actually seeing a situation where we have members of individuals who are members of both organizations, who participate in North Star, who participate in Affirmation. I think that's good, because that says we've got a continuum of support and service for wherever people are on that spectrum. And are there major differences between Affirmation and North Star, and maybe even potential areas of conflict? Absolutely. But again, I think, under Randall's leadership and with the support of the current leadership team, which includes me and Catherine and Kathy and Fred, we're starting to have some dialogue and kind of discuss ways that we can serve. Really, I think we need to think of this in terms of, it's not about us as an organization, it's not about maintaining Affirmation, it's about serving the LGBT SSA Mormon community. That's the big picture that we always need to keep our eye on, and we always need to think about who is there in that community who's hurting, who's not being served right now. And if talking and working with other organizations promotes that, then absolutely we need to do that.
Yeah, I'm tempted to say what these guys said. But basically, I love that idea of building bridges and building nets between organizations. But what that looks like is to really start, I believe it starts with the leadership, like being able to have leadership of both organizations sit down, which has happened before, and just discuss what is common. I do believe that there is a huge concern in any party, anybody cares about suicidality, especially around our young and vulnerable, and we care about homeless youth, we care about people wanting to live. We care about people wanting to have a future. And that is a very common ground that Affirmation and North Star and I think any reasonable person cares about. And so basically just fostering those conversations, like finding the common ground. And I mean, like we can have. I believe personally. I believe that Affirmation's founding principle is agency. Like I can be affirmed in whatever path I take. I can affirm others in whatever path they choose to take. In terms of a bit of my past, I did reparative therapy for about 8 years, and without having the opportunity to do that, I might not have been okay. You know, because I needed that. I needed to have that process happen in order to reach whatever path I wound up and will continue to wind up reaching. And so being able to affirm not only ourselves, but people that we disagree with, people that we see things differently than, I think that's what's going to be extremely important. And also be that bridge, be that net, and be that net for the people that are living in crisis.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of hands here, so the first one I saw was yes, a good one.
I have two questions for John. So you talk about spiritual healing, and I think that's really needed. There's people that I feel that they're lost, and I was one of them. So do you have a plan that will reach out to those people? Because I know that there's plenty of people out there who are looking for affirmation type of organization that can help them. That's the first question. And the second one is, I met with some leaders of the church about 2 months ago, and I feel that they are willing to learn because even though they are not talking about doctrine, they are really willing to learn more about the gay community itself. And Elder Christofferson is a very open-minded person to talk about this. So what is your plan to continue or increase that conversation within the church so we can have more results throughout the church in general and works and something that can benefit more people?
Yeah, well, the first part of your question, I'd say what we really need to do is we need to get the word out, right? I mean, and I think part of the beauty of what we've seen these last few years is that as more and more people know about the existence of affirmation, right? Like years ago, you'd say affirmation, people would say, what? And so for there to be actually more awareness that there is an organization for LGBTQ SSA individuals that is open, that's inclusive, that's safe, where you will go, where you will be embraced and you will be loved by people who have gone through the same things you have gone through, or by parents and families who have kids who've gone through the same things, who are dying to put their arms around you and hug you and love you and be there to support you. So getting that message out there, just letting people know that we exist and making those connections. And we've been doing that through publicity, through conferences, by organizing regional things in Latin America, in Europe, throughout the United States, different parts. So continuing to do that, and I really kind of see us to just continue to build on that and improve that. So that's how we bring the spiritual healing to more people. In answer to your second question, we just recently developed a resource which I think is going to be fantastic for church leaders. It's a collection of LGBT Mormon testimonies. And these are powerful. These are individuals who are across the spectrum. Some are active in the church, some are not. And across the spectrum that affirmation represents. And there are powerful messages in here. And I think that to present these to church leaders will completely transform their understanding. It'll show them what the faith of LGBTQ SSA people looks like. They'll realize we have faith, we have spirits, we yearn for connection with God, we want to build the kingdom of Jesus Christ, right? So those will be important messages for our church leaders. And so we need to support people in those who are able to and those who are willing to in the process of coming out to their leaders and talking to their leaders. I've been in a process of discussion with my bishop, with actually 3 bishops, 2 stake presidents for the last 10 years. And I have seen incredible things happen in terms of awareness in my ward and my state as a result of that. And I'm not the only one who's doing that. There are people all over who are doing that. And so I think as an organization, we can provide models for people and a support structure for people. It's a scary thing to do. But if you have a community that's backing you and that's supporting you, and if you've seen some models of how other people have done it, I think that will help with that.
Due to time constraints, I think we only have time for about 2 more questions. Christian's going to the next one, and actually, the 2 Christians are going to be the next 2. I'm afraid we were just going to be out of time at that point. Okay. Next, Christian.
This is a question for Fred. I was really intrigued by your kind of 6 guiding principles: gospel, people, nation, kindred, tongue, and stone. And yet I did not know what that meant when you explained it in your speech. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure, I'll be glad to. If you go to the conference center in Salt Lake, you go up on the top garden. Well, the first thing you'll see is a quote from DNC, which talks about spreading the gospel to all nations, tongues, and so forth. And if you look at that picture, my vision is really around the perception of people of what LGBT people are. It's a collection of people from different centuries, current, past, different ethnicities. And I would just like for them to take a look at that in a different way, that there could be LGBT people in that picture, and that we deserve to be part of all of that and be part of Zion for the broad spectrum of LGBT Mormons, from those who don't believe to those who do, that we still need to be in that picture for the simple fact is that the world needs to know that we matter and we're of value.
Thank you. Christian, did you have anything to go with this?
I'm not going to stand. This is a question for all 3 of you. So we all stand a little bit in awe of Randall. And so this is specifically because this is a transition, and I think that we need to recognize that this is a transition. So I'd like for each of you to briefly mention one thing that you would consider to be a heritage from Randall that you see continuing in your tenure, and then talk about something that you would change, because we know that this will change in the transition. So I'd like to officially honor that.
Sounds good. So, my, I guess, inheritance, but what I like to take out, the leaf that I like to take out of Randall's book is the big tent nature of affirmation. That it doesn't matter how you identify, it doesn't matter how you self-identify, we respect you. And we respect ourselves. We're okay with you, we're okay with us, that kind of thing. And so basically, wherever you are in your spiritual path, in your gender identity, in your sexual orientation, in any aspect of you, we want you to feel safe and have a home with us. And then, in terms of change, what I really like, I'm very passionate about having, kind of gathering the lost sheep. There's a lot of people who are not here, who I think would really greatly benefit, other LGBT souls, and particularly, people of color, people with disabilities. I'd love to be able to have a place that is safe, and that where we've built things that we've created the conversations, we've made it a safe place. I'd love to see that happen as soon as possible, and it already is beginning to, but I'd love to see that more, just in a very healthy state. I like to think of things like a river. If you dam the river, it's not potable for a while, but if you remove the dam, it still needs some time. And we're in that transition where we've removed the dam. We've started the conversation about intersectionality and other things, but as soon as there just needs to be more time for us to keep working and keep striving, and then the water will become potable and it'll be a healthy place for everybody.
Well, so the heritage for me goes back to a very momentous evening 3 years ago at this very same meeting when Randall got up and he said, we need to be able to be both gay and Mormon. We need to not have to choose between one or the other. And we as an organization need to be able to follow the Spirit. That was a powerful thing for me. And so that for me has been kind of the keynote of Randall's leadership and affirmation. And when he said that, I was like, I will follow this guy to the ends of the earth. Because that's what I believe in too. That's what I want to see us do as an organization. What I plan to do differently, I do with Randall's full blessing. So I don't know if it's a change of course, but it feels like a huge challenge to me, is that I have committed to, I've already spoken about who I would like to have as my vice presidents. And I want to have Sarah Jade Woodhouse, who, as you know, is a transgender activist here in Utah. And I've asked Adri San Roman to be my other vice president. And I think this is going to be the first time in the history of affirmation that we're going to have a bilingual and an international executive committee. And that seems incredibly challenging to me, but it feels so right to me. It feels like what has to happen. We have to take this a step further and really see ourselves as an international organization. And so I'm committed to do that and to make that work. And again, I don't know if it's a huge departure. It's going to be a historic precedent. It's something that, you know, I think that if Randall were running again, it's probably something that he would do himself. But yeah.
Randall, I want to thank you for many things, but one of the things that I want to concentrate on simply is I've been in affirmation many years, and part of the discussion we had is that with all these different groups, we still needed to have some type of guiding principles / strategy to go out into the world and tell the world who we are. So you have gone and helped us do that, and helped us form that, and it works tremendously well for all of our people. So that's my main thing that I really appreciate about what you have done, because that's very difficult. And we worked at that, and it turned out to be a really great process. What I would change would be something very simple, which is, for me, I found in my experience, communication. I feel that the communication we have both internally and externally really should be looked at, revised, and make a strategy around that, because here's the way it works, is that we need to be good neighbors to each other. So to do that, we really need to learn how to communicate better within the organization and the leadership and out to our people of affirmation. Then also externally, because good things that we are doing, as we all know, need to be passed on, need to be gotten out there to many, many different audiences. Again, with that in mind, in addition to the church, one of the things that I really think that's important as we get out to the LGBT community in general and get word out to them about what we're doing, because when we may think that we can't find enough LGBT Mormons, they're out there. They're in those groups. So we need to go out and find them. So in that case, I would say both internal and external communications.
Thank you. For our last question, I'd like to give a chance for one of the Spanish-speaking members to ask the question. Is there someone that does? Okay, why don't you ask the question in Spanish, and then I'll have to take the microphone to the translator to translate it for everyone else.
Sabemos que en Estados Unidos
We all
Affirmation
know that in the US, affirmation
tiene muchísimos años
has
y se ha
a lot of
desarrollado
years and
muchísimo.
it has developed a lot.
Pero en
But
Latinoamérica
in Latin America,
es relativamente nuevo
it is new
y los desafíos están comenzando.
and challenges are barely starting.
La pregunta para los tres
The
es,
question for you three is,
¿cuál es la visión que tienen de
which is
Latinoamérica
your vision for Latin America
y cuál es el plan que
and what
ustedes
is your
utilizarían
plan that you would use
para trabajar justamente
to
con
work
estos países?
with our countries?
Thank you for that question. My plan for Latin America is you guys have grown so much in such a short time, and it's a wonderful thing. My plan would be to solidify that growth and make sure that it's sustainable for each country that we have presence in, and then go ahead and branch out from that. Because for the most part, for the major populated countries, we have chapters in, but we do not have them in other countries that would benefit from the lessons and the strategic things you have done, and they need to have the benefit of that as well.
Well, it's an interesting question for me because I can say that when I went to the first Affirmation conference in Mexico that was recently organized, that was a profound experience for me. And the faith and the passion that I saw, and the absolute commitment and love for the church and for the gospel, and also the absolute commitment to be honest and clear about who we are as LGBT people was so inspiring to me. And I came away from that feeling like the United States of America needs to learn from these people. We need that faith and that passion and that power up here, which is partly why I'm so excited about having Adri step into an international leadership role. In terms of support, we have financial resources and we have people resources here that we need to share with our brothers and sisters in Latin America. We need to continue exchanges. There need to be our members here in North America who go down there and participate in the conferences and learn to know you so that we can be fully connected as brothers and sisters. We need to bring you up here so that we can develop those ties and those relationships. And we had a donor recently who came to us and who said, I have a lot of money. I'm a straight guy. I feel bad about all the bad things we've done to LGBT people. What can I do? I want to give you money. And we said, let's earmark those funds for Latin America. So I think that the resources that we have, we need to use to continue to develop, and we need those exchanges, interchanges. The relationships that I have with my brothers and sisters there are so valuable, and we all will benefit from deepening those kinds of relationships intercontinentally.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with like having a lot of more events, having more support in person. I love the idea of having your presidencies down there, having your leadership teams, making sure that you guys are trained, that we have clearly defined roles that a leadership team does. We devote the resources that we need to financially, in terms of personnel and people, like having volunteers help you guys out, or have your volunteer help us out too, because we need you too. But also, I love the idea of not only doing in-person things, but really incorporating online meetups. Like we have a service called Zoom.us that I believe works internationally for the most part. I know Amadee uses it, but it might depend on the country. But basically, we'll find other resources if that doesn't work. But I'd love to have more in-person and virtual talks and just get to know you and really let you bless us, and we want to bless you too. So, and I love the idea of connecting internationally and really also having you guys be self-directed too. Because I don't know what your friends and your family's needs are. I have my guesses, I have my theories, but I love the idea of you guys being able to be empowered to be self-directed and supported by us financially, with personnel, with any other resources that you need. So that's my plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this demonstration of democracy. I would just like to remind you a couple things before we close, which is we will be, administratively now, we will be mailing the ballots, good old U.S. mail. It's been decided because the an electronic system that's really secure is not really in place. It's not time to develop it. We've tried things, but you will be able to vote online. But to get you the ballot with a secure PIN is the difficult part. So we do intend on mailing those. We will publish information about this on our website through the newsletters coming up, with information like there'll be an email address about how to get a hold of us if you don't get a ballot and that kind of thing. So just be sure and look for that when it comes and respond to it quickly, because there's going to be like a 2 or 3 week window is all to be able to vote, and then we have to close the voting so we can count it. It's 2 weeks. It usually, depending on when we get the ballots out, you may have a little more time. But what I'm saying is be prompt. Also, as was mentioned earlier, the eligibility to vote depends on when you've contributed. We used to in the old days have like dues. We'd mail you a dues reminder. You could pay your dues, and there was an expiration date. That became such an administrative nightmare that now it's just that we look at the donation records, and the vast majority of donations are online or through when you register for your conference or other retreats. But if you're not sure if you've done that, just go online and make a donation, or you will again be able to contact me and say, am I eligible? And if you have friends who did not come to the conference, but you know are members of Affirmation, wish to be or wish to make their voices heard in this selection, encourage them to go ahead and make a donation through our website, through Networks for Good, who is our online helper, and just do it by Halloween. That's an easy date to remember, and then you will be able to get a vote, because the ballots will go out after that. And so, and I did want to say one thing, that the 3 candidates have all, like I said, as they said today, volunteers said that they will support Affirmation no matter which of them wins. And I'd like to ask you to have that same spirit, that perhaps you have a strong favoritism for one candidate, maybe another candidate will win, but continue to support Affirmation. The organization is far greater than any one personality. The concept of what we're doing here is far greater than any personality. And there will be an election next year and the year after that, and we will go on. So, remember what they say in British Parliament, there always needs to be a loyal opposition, So even if you oppose the candidate that wins, support the organization and support our community. Thank you.
I think one of the things that helps Affirmation really steady itself these days is the fact that 4.5 years ago a board was instituted. And so really the organization is run by 18 individuals, and these individuals have all been involved with that board or executive committee already and plan to continue being involved in some way. Thank you very much, Olin, for doing that. Thank you, candidates, for sharing. Thank you all for your questions. The next activity today is if this is your first conference ever in Affirmation, stay in this room or come back to this room by 4:30 and we'll have a first-timer session. And if it's not, then you have free time. If you are somebody who leads a local Affirmation or an LGBT support organization group in some local area in the U.S. or internationally, we invite you to go to the boardroom, which is located going out to the patio. It's on the right. They're going to be sharing ideas like, what do you do in your chapter? What do we do in our group? And what are some of the best practices? And how do we get people to come? And how do we best help people? So it's going to be a sharing of ideas and brainstorming around how to best help people in local groups. And then at 6 p.m., dinner will start here in the pre-function and on the terrace. And then at 8 p.m. tonight, the program will be downstairs in the bigger ballroom. Okay? Thank you, everybody.